Welcome to the ShadowMega RadZ Installation video series. Due to the length of the content, I have split the video up into multiple parts. This first part will deal with the teardown of the ShadowMega and drilling of the case in preparation of the RadZ buildup. If you're starting with the original Pro Mega, please watch the ShadowMega video which deals with that scenario. I will put the link to that video up in the corner. Before we start the video, first a word of caution. The quality of the outcome of the mod heavily depends on it being executed well. I strongly suggest to first watch through the whole video at least once to familiarize yourself with the tasks ahead. It will make things easier when you're actually doing the upgrade if you have an understanding of the different steps we're going through. So don't rush things, take your time, particularly in this initial phase where we're drilling holes into the Pro Mega case. If something isn't clear from the video, just send me a message and I'll work with you through the issue. Here is a list of tools you need in this video. In the description of this video is a table of contents with time links that allow you to go to specific parts of this video if you need to see that particular section again. And with that, we're ready to actually start the video.
Okay, so first step will be to tear down the existing setup. We're gonna do that top to bottom, and basically the C motion goes last, like the C motion of the bed goes last. Certain things that you already have in ShadowMega form.
You don't want to walk around and be on camera?
No. Certain things that you already have on the ShadowMega, like the stepper plates and so on, you can leave assembled and just take the whole thing off and put it back on as you need. And so we're gonna fast forward through that and stop at points if there's something interesting to say there. One thing to mention, as you take stuff apart, you want to put the screws into like compartments and label them so you know where the stuff goes, and you don't have to figure out later on where all the individual screws go.
Here I'm taking off the side windows.
So taking off the cable chain, take off the 4 in the plate and then the 3 in attaching the cable chain?
Yes.
And then Joe is doing the cable chain and I am working on the top cover, several screws on the side and then in the front.
Okay.
And I guess you could unhook this on here as well at the same time.
I loosen the stepper so that I can remove the belts from the carriage. And back to the top cover. Those screws in the back there are a little hard to get to. I might redesign it at some point, but for now, it's what it is. Okay, here I'm removing the fan duct, and then I'm starting to remove the carriage from the gantry. And with that, the printhead is off the carriage, off the gantry. Now I'm removing the Endstop and then the whole stepper assembly in the back. That goes in one piece. And the stepper assembly is off.
So this here that I'm doing right now is
Stepper cover.
to replace the the mechanical X Endstop. We're going to put an optical X Endstop on there, so if you don't do that, don't worry about it. But of course the quality of the optical is so much better than anything you get with the mechanical. You can home at a much faster speed. I'm homing at 200 millimeters a second, which is scary the first time you do it, but you get used to it.
So these, this whole assembly comes out. Take these apart, or just take the rails off and.
No, you can't need to take those apart because you wouldn't want that thing to bend.
Okay.
Like just like from down here, remove the screws, remove this part, remove these two screws down here, remove these screws here, take this one out, do the same thing over here, and then there are screws in there to take the rail off. And then you can get to the bracket and get the bracket off the rail. Well, the bracket we don't need to take off the rail.
Right.
Actually, we ended up taking the brackets off anyways because we replaced that with the one that can have the maker beam on it. So in that case you want to do that.
So that's the difference between the two holders here. One is like the same as the other side, which is just flat, and the other one had the mechanical X Endstop on there. And since you don't use that anymore, we're gonna mount one of these guys here. STLs for that will be available.
So Joe is removing the side idler holders, and then after that the gantry itself. Here's the rail, and what he does is he actually puts little zip ties at the end of the rail so that the block does not slide off, and that's probably a good idea to do. Here he took one of the Y rails off. I'm testing the idlers in the back idler holder with a belt as shown in the ShadowMega installation video, and then I'm removing the mechanical X Endstop. And here I'm removing the front idler holders.
Another improvement we're making are the front idlers. This here is the old one.
Thanks for doing that when I'm on the ground. Sorry. Start over.
The other one is the new one here. As you can see, it has an additional screw point, and instead of using heat certs to screw to the side, we're using through screws and nuts to fasten it to the side there. That gives it more stability, makes it just a little bit more solid the way it holds.
Here Joe removes the spool holder. And I'm removing the other front idler holder.
Psycho mutt. That sweet little thing, you wouldn't think.
Well, takes after their owner, they say, right?
I will be right back.
Now I'm taking the bed heater switch off. Joe is removing the power switch. Here Joe can be seen removing the optical Endstop. We switched that over to a new version. I'm taking off the power supply. We're unplugging all the cables from the duet. And I'm starting to disassemble the C motion.
This is the handy dandy Joe's afraid of the Promega taking his hands off device.
So basically we put a styrofoam block under the bed so the bed doesn't drop down while we take the belts out. Makes it much easier if you have something there to keep the bed in place. Joe is removing the duet board. I'm starting to remove the side extrusions. We're going to put those aside and we're going to use the back two later on again in the case for stability. And the bed is out, the belts are put aside, and Joe is detaching the heater. And now we're disassembling the whole bed. Like take the heater off the bed, and the stepper cables and all that kind of stuff. Make sure you still keep the sensor cables, because we're still going to use those later on. Basically, don't throw anything away until you're done with the RadZ build-up, just in case we need something.
Okay, we're gonna take a little break, be back in a bit. And he magically appeared.
There we go. And we're turning it over.
Oh, there was one more screw.
And now we're taking off the bottom screws of the side extrusions and removing the feet. And the last thing there is the adjustable C feet that he had in there. You might not have those.
Okay, and just like that, we have the Promega stripped down to basically the frame, and that's it. And next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mount drill templates and start drilling into it. And we'll be back with that. Okay. Woohoo! So for the next step, we're actually gonna fill the front side and the bottom holes that are empty, like those where we don't have rivets in it. We're gonna fill those with screws to give it more stability. You might want to check if your frame is square before you do that, and if not, try to square it up a little bit. And in addition to that, on the bottom here, there are a couple of screw holes where this radius here screws into the back, and we're going to put some M4 by 8mm pan heads in there, just to give it a little bit more stability. We're only going to do 2 on this side and then 1 on the far side there, because the center is where the Endstop is, the C Endstop, and so we can't really get there easily. So all the screws are in now, both on the side here and on the bottom. Don't worry about the top, that's where the top cover goes, and we'll screw those in once the top cover is back on. But this gives the case a lot more stability compared to just those little rivets that they had. And so the next step is to actually put the drill templates on, and we'll start drilling.
For the drilling, I split stuff into 2 different forms. For visual stuff, it's this video, where you can see how the templates look when they're mounted and all that kind of stuff. But then for the actual detail information, like the correct hole size, the screws and so on, that are used to mount the templates, all of that is in the Word document that I've provided, and anything in the Word document, if the information is different, the Word document supersedes what is in the video here. So yeah, use both of those sources to do the drilling here.
Okay, so we have 2 screws here that hold the drill template in place, and then what we make sure is, before we tighten it down, that this is actually at a right angle to the case and nicely aligned. And you should see, like, the center here, the slot should align nicely with the hole. And next step is drilling. When you start drilling, remember there is like a slot down there, so be sure that the drill bit doesn't catch. So you probably want to like pull back a little bit when you start, and then and then gently go down. And that's it. And that's what it looks like when it's drilled through. As you can see, it catches a little bit on the drill template. That's why the drill templates cannot be reused for more than 1 machine, maybe 2, before you start getting precision issues. And that's okay if it eats on the plastic a little bit. And next we're gonna drill the 4 3.5mm. Oops, here, these guys, the 4 corner of the stepper, and after that these 2 here are 4.5mm drill bits. Okay, let's get that done. Okay, now that we've drilled through all the holes here, you can take off this drill template, move it over to the other side, and do exactly the same thing there. And this is what it looks like with the holes drilled. If the holes are a little rough on the top, you can just take a larger drill bit and just gently deburr it, or if you have a deburr tool, that works as well. Just that it's nice and smooth, or you can use a file for the bigger one to file it down. And this is what it should look like with the holes nice and smooth, especially on the inside where you might have like some parts from the drill through, like standing up. You don't want the stepper standoffs to be tilted or something, because you have a burr there. And then we move on to the next template. So the next drill template goes in the center. You screw it into 2 of the holes that you just drilled. You check that it's nice and perpendicular to the side, and then you're gonna drill two center holes here. Now we're going to do the same thing with the back side template. Again, before you tighten it all the way down, make sure you put the square on it to make sure it's nicely aligned. And then you're gonna drill the two inside holes here, which is where we attach the 2020 on the bottom. So now that we have the side holes drilled, we're gonna put the center template on again, same one as we used in the front, so that we can drill the two center holes that we're then gonna use to attach the next template. So for the back template, we're gonna put two M4 screws down here, two M4 screws on the outside here, and then four M3 screws in the square here. And don't tighten them all the way yet, just put all the knots on. Once that's done, we adjust it so it is nicely firm, and then we start tightening them down. And then we're going to drill both on the back side here as well as a stepper drilling on the bottom here. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're drilling out these four holes here and the one here. These four are like the upper of the two, and this is the lower of the two. They need to be 5 millimeters, and that's where we're going to mount the vertical and the horizontal 2020 extrusion later on. And then you take 6 M4 screws, like in the corners, and you're going to drill through those two again with 5 millimeters. And that's it for the back. And as a little bonus, this is the drill template for the Fanless PSU. I'll have links and all that available for that. Template will be downloadable. Drill plan and so on, how to screw it on, all of that is in the document for that. And we're just gonna drill like 4 holes and then be able to mount the new Fanless PSU. And the last template is for the side rails. The top one here goes into one of the threaded holes from the Y rail, and then the others have nuts on the other side. Make sure they're nicely vertical here, like that you have about the same gap across here, and just align it nicely in the center there. And then they're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes to drill in total. Okay. One thing to note is the arrow here that is pointing up. Make sure that is actually pointing up, otherwise you end up like what I did the first time and drill the wrong holes. So just pay attention to that. One thing to pay attention to is like don't put too much pressure on these here, because you can actually bend the aluminum here, so make sure you don't like go too hard on that. And we need to drill one more hole. The new front idler that we're putting on here has an additional hole that pulls it to the front here, so we're gonna drill above the magnetic hole here. We're gonna drill another hole, put a drill template on it, and just drill through it from the front. So if you have somebody to hold it, you just can hold it in place like this. There is a little knob here that goes into the magnetic hole and keeps it in place. If you're by yourself, you just put the screws on the outside and through the magnetic hole, and there are counter plates for that. And then you can just do it by yourself.
So that was the last drill template. That concludes drilling. You now have all the holes that we need in the case. I think that's probably was the hardest part of the upgrade. From now it should be easier. You can now go to the next part of the video series on how to build the whole printer back up again.